Seems like in today's gaming community, there's a lot of negativity regarding new releases. I mean, granted, some games are utter shit and don't even deserve to live. I mean, like Cyberpunk. But other games get undeserved and unfair criticism for what seems to be nothing other than it just being the same thing that it always has been. And I think this couldn't be more true than in the COD community. Every year, we get a new game, and every year it seems like so many people hate it. Granted, some games are shit. Black Ops 4. Solid works of art, and I think should be appreciated a little bit more. Now, to preface this, I want to say that I do fall guilty of feeling nostalgic with video games all the time. I love going back and playing video games that I loved as a kid. Games like, what is that one? 2K7? No, I can't be right. But honestly, like games like Black Ops 1, Modern Warfare 2 and 3, even some Wii games were some of my favorites as a kid. The issue I always am faced with is the fact that these games just aren't even fun anymore. I go to play them, and I'm extremely bored with them. For example, as a kid, I had played hours and hours of Black Ops 1 Zombies. Me and my friends would just hop on Xbox on the weekends and just go at it. But going back to it, it seems so bland and primitive, making it feel like just so boring. Take, for example, Kino der Toten, a great map in retrospect. But playing it now just seems so, how do I put this? Old! However, this nostalgia still lingers with me as I begin to miss the quote-unquote good old days of COD. This predicament made me wonder, what do I actually miss about the old games of my childhood? And thinking it through, I think that I miss being a kid with little responsibility and being able to worry about very little. Except for the economic crash of 2008, but we don't need to talk about that. I missed being able to spend hours and hours playing Xbox and not having to worry about schoolwork or a job or anything in my adult life. I don't actually miss the game itself. I miss the memories, and I long for the times when life was so much simpler. With that said, I think that many people probably feel the same way. They want that feeling of being young and free again, and being untethered from the brutality of adulthood that we all know and hate. This feeling of nostalgia, while perfectly valid, is something that is haunting the gaming community as a whole in one way or another. Nostalgia is creating a sense of, quote-unquote, nothing will ever be as good as blank. When gamers think like this, it creates a lot of pessimism about games. It makes us look at games nowadays and say, yeah, but it wasn't as good as the original. And I would argue that the original, in many cases, is not as great as the ones we have now. Of course, there are plenty of outliers, but for the most part, the statement is pretty true, in my opinion. Take, for example, how people so often compare Call of Duties of today to the ones of old. They will say how Black Ops 1 and 2 were amazing, and how Modern Warfare 2 was just an utter masterpiece. No one would ever dare to even criticize those games in the slightest, most likely due to the nostalgia. However, when looking at the modern Call of Duties, people will tear those to shreds, saying how they are unbalanced, or the maps suck, or the other players' play style is terrible. But looking back, we see that the masterpieces were guilty of the exact same thing. Modern Warfare 2 had some very overpowered guns. Of course, I'm obviously talking about the Mini Uzi. Guns like the ACR or the UMP or the Intervention were everywhere in the game. Those guns were unstoppable, and if we're in today's Call of Duty, would be torn to shreds. But because they are a part of the masterclass of CODs, they don't even get talked about. Even Black Ops 1 had the FAMAS, which was extremely OP. Not to mention all these games had one knife kill. And as for the maps, all games have bad maps and good maps. To say Modern Warfare 2 and its maps were all great is an utter mistake. Even saying most or even some were good is a mistake. Because let's face it, there's a couple good maps on that game. I mean, take a look at Estate, Derail, Favela, or Underpass, and you'll know that those maps were terrible. There is no way that if they were remastered, that they would be liked by the COD community today. These maps were gigantic and just made it easier for campers to be successful. But because they were in Modern Warfare 2, no one even touches them. People today are too caught up in nostalgia and comparing games to those of the past that they are missing what is right in front of them. They keep comparing, and while it is okay to do so, it hurts players' ability to truly enjoy the game. The nostalgia is something that people do not even realize is hurting the community, and I think that they need to, in order to start feeling more satisfied with gaming. While I know it's a stretch, I do think it is something to note, that having a more positive outlook on a video game can help you to enjoy it more. I think that it is okay to think about the past and remember fondly the great days of old. But to remain in the past and to be stuck in the past is a completely different thing. Doing this leads developers to try and replicate old game success. When doing this, people get angry, saying, "Oh, how the new adaptation will never be as good as the old one." Whether they make a new game or duplicate past games, the result is always fans being angry. And my point is that the nostalgia creeps in whether the idea is new or old, because the new ones will just never be as good. Instead of letting this nostalgia have such a tight grip on the gaming community, we should let go of the past and take a fresh look at the games of today with a new perspective, so that we can enjoy it for what it is and stop criticizing it for what it is not. Maybe we should just let our childhood be and focus what is right in front of us, and maybe, who knows, you'll be able to enjoy games a bit more. And maybe everyone should stop being a bunch of fucking